But I just want you to know that I learned something early on in Delaware. You keep an audience standing more than 15 minutes, you lose them completely. You've already been standing about an hour, so I have no chance. It's great to be back in Rhode Island. I was thinking about it. I'm going to really date myself. I got elected 217 years ago. I got elected when you had two senators named Pastore and Hill. And I just want to say that Rhode Island and the men, at that time, the men who served Rhode Island, were significant in my life. When I got elected, I hadn't planned on saying this, but when I got elected in 1972, it's true I was too young to be sworn in, but I was down in Washington on December 18th, hiring staff, and I got a phone call saying my wife and daughter had just been killed, and my two sons were not likely to live. And two of the six people who helped me get through it and convinced me to come to the Senate, the tractor trailer broadside to them while they were Christmas shopping. And two of the people who convinced me I didn't want to come to the Senate. I went to, my brother managed my campaign, was my fundraiser. My sister managed my campaign, both younger than me. And we had a Democrat elected governor. It was a Republican governor, but a Democrat elected. And went to him to replace, have someone be sworn into my stead, because we were a Southern Democratic Party, and I'm the first progressive that was elected in a long, long time in Delaware. And I got a call from John Pastore. And John Pastore was more like a Dutch uncle with me. He told me what I owed my wife. He and Mike Mansfield told me that only 1,704 people had been elected to the Senate, and that she worked so hard, and I owed to my wife and my children, my progeny, to be sworn in at least. Didn't have to stay, but I could come just be sworn in and help them get organized for 6 months and then leave. I was so foolish. We already had 58 Democratic senators. We had another one replace me. But I'm the first U.S. senator I ever knew, and so I didn't know any better. And then when I got there, Claiborne and Noella reached out to me in ways that I don't think you'd think this way about Claiborne, but he would, I commuted every day. Claiborne would always say, come stay at my house. Come stay at my house, too late to go home, too late to go home. And Noella was incredible. And so it's been that way since I got to the Senate. And folks, you have some really fine people. David and Jim are people with, I guess the best way to characterize your representation, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I've campaigned, I think I can say without fear of contradiction, I've campaigned for more Democrats than any living person, just because I've every single off-year and regular election, I go out and campaigns for scores, and I've already campaigned for 62 House and Senate members and governors around the country. Not all Democrats are created equal. And so, folks, the thing that your delegation has more than almost any is people with great character, with backbone. I've said this to Jack, not just because of Rhode Island, but I said this to Jack, if we'd grown up in the same neighborhood, we'd have been friends. Because I knew from the beginning, not a joke, that if he's the kind of guy that if I got jumped by 3 other guys, even though we were going to get beat, he'd jump in. Not a joke. I think he knows I do it for him too. It's a cultural, I mean, it's real. It's real. And Jack has, it's not because Jack went to West Point. Jack went to West Point because of who he is. He became an Army Ranger because that's what he thought he should do, and he did it well. When we travel into war zones, every single soldier Marine, everyone. They wanted to meet Jack, say hi to Jack. Not a joke, because again, there's this culture. Some people are defined by what they do. Others decide what they do based on their definition of who they are. And that's the case with Jack. And the same is true with Sheldon. He's my friend, but there's two things you got to know about Sheldon to start off with. Number one, he's smarter than you. And number two, he's the biggest pain in the rear end in the world. I don't know how many phone calls I got as vice president. Joe, we need a new bridge. Joe, we need this. Joe, we need that. Joe. And I later found out about half of Delaware's federal funds are here in It's so rational and so reasonable. I tell you, I never saw anybody fight so hard for Rhode Island, for God's sake. When you're from a small state, you fight like the devil for that piece of pie, but for the fact the great compromise is made that every state gets 2 senators. Think about it, not a joke. States like Delaware, Rhode Island would be left without their fair share, without schools, without the bridges, without the roads, without the nuclear centers, and it really, really matters. And if you're from a small state, you know what it means. And you're from a small state like I am, you literally, I remember campaigning, Sheldon, down in southern Delaware, that talk at you like he's a little bit down Milford Way. And I was invited to speak to a Southern Methodist church. And afterwards, I was in a service. Afterwards, I said hi to everybody. As the preacher asked me to say hi to people leaving the church. There was a service that day, and it was beautiful oak trees in the cemetery out in front of this old church. And I walked over to my host that night. In Southern Delaware, if you're not invited to stay at someone's home, everybody knows you're not welcome. Not a joke. I mean it sincerely. Because in Southern Delaware, talking like a joke, don't agree with a damn thing you say, boy, but I like you. Tell like it is, Joe. God, I'm on go for it, Joe. But then you all think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. At any rate, I walked over to my host and hostess. I stayed the night before, and they said, how'd it go? And I said, everybody was great except that one horse's tail over there. It's a true story. And my host said, you're right, Joe, he is, but damn, he's my first cousin, John. True story. So you got to be careful what you say. Everybody's related. My guess is that's why politics in Rhode Island works a little better like it does in Delaware. We're able to solve things by getting everyone in one room. Folks, and your governor. I came up when your governor was first elected and as vice president because she decided she was going to try to restore some of your decrepit bridges that were literally unsafe and people might die. She decided it was important to get to make sure that your roads were looked after. She was one who was just all about doing the job. You know, governor's a real job, man. They know where you live. They know where you live. And you expected to get things done. And on the basic things. And I think, Gina, you're one of the best governors in the United States of America. We should go back to what we used to be for most of our life as a nation. We show much more respect for immigrants and much more respect for the people who built this country. You know, his grandpa came to the United States when he was 14 years old, and he learned English at the Providence Public Library, and he never stopped learning, never stopped teaching. And his granddaughter is now the governor of this great state. And while I had never met your grandpa, Gina, I think his determination lives on in you in a very, very strong way, and your dad. Look what you guys are doing with a few short years. You've repaired the roads and the bridges all across the state, but you're one of only 5 states in America, 5 states in America, where you have tuition-free community college and job training. Grandfather's 21st century version of the Providence Library. It matters. It matters. And education, as you all know, is a passport to the middle class, and you're providing that passport. But more important than any of the accomplishments that Gina has, it's her character. Again, I really mean it. Think how desperately in need we are of character in both political parties these days. Before we get to the elections, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about something that's been on my mind in the last months. Folks, this election is bigger than politics. That's not hyperbole. It's bigger than politics. The core values that built this nation are at risk. That invisible moral fabric that holds up a society, a democracy, is being shredded. I mean, literally being shredded. Our institutions are under assault. The free press has been attacked since before it ran. It's the fake news. The justice system was attacked. He started off by going after a judge because his father was Mexican, even though he was a native-born American, because he went after his scam college, the Trump College. Our justice system has been attacked repeatedly by this administration for conducting witch hunts. And just last week, we witnessed from the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee a degree of invective, blind rage, and brute partisanship that threatens not only the Senate and the Supreme Court, it threatens the basic faith the American people have in our institutions. It's no hyperbole. I really mean it. Dr. Leslie Ford gave courageous, credible testimony. And yet she was denied an FBI investigation, which was automatic when I was chairman. Automatically, immediately, an FBI investigation would be ordered. It's just a basic thing that's been done in the Judiciary Committee. But it's become partisan. It's become a political football. Dr. Ford deserves a full, robust investigation. The Supreme Court deserves it. The Supreme Court deserves it. Those who were lawyers and law students, you remember a guy named Jerome Frank wrote a treatise called Law in the Modern Mind. He talked about the need for it to be a judicial myth, meaning that people had to accept the fact that it was open, nonpartisan, honest deliberation. Because otherwise, as they, to paraphrase another phrase, they said, how many legions does the Pope have? Well, how much army does the Supreme Court have? It's all the reputation. It's the reputation that counts for our stability. And folks, our standing around the world and our ability to lead is slipping away. I'm going to say something outrageous. I think I know as much about American foreign policy as anybody engaged in the country today. I've done it my whole life. I chaired the Foreign Relations Committee, and my job for the President of the United States was to be an intermediary with other governments. And the calls I get when I travel around the world, and you guys get it too, the calls you get are, what's happened, Joe? What's happened? What's going on? What happened to that shining city on the hill? You think I'm being a wise guy, but those of you, and many of you who travel the world, we've always been viewed as sort of naive. by other countries who think they're more sophisticated, because we always talk about fairness. We always talk about decency. That made us naive. But it's how people associate with us. We're respected around the world not because of the exercise of our power, but the power of our example. And look what's happening today. Look what's happening. I understand the president said in West Virginia that he loves the president of North Korea because they've exchanged letters. No, I mean, look, I'm not looking for a war, but I'm looking for some reality. Barack and I agreed when the President Obama and I agreed when we, by the way, all those memes. He did the first friendship bracelet. But he is my friend. We're close friends, and we still keep in touch with one another. And we both agreed that we should give the administration a chance to get us sea legs, to get organized, because it didn't expect to win, and it didn't have an organizational structure set up, and so we didn't want to just jump on it immediately and hope that it would pick the right people and begin, even though we knew we weren't going to agree with it, but begin to operate within the basic guardrails of this American democracy. But folks, after Charlottesville, I'm going to be deadly earnest here. After Charlottesville, I couldn't remain silent anymore, and I wrote an article. Entitled "The Battle for the Soul of America," because I think that's who we are. I think we're living in the battle for the soul of America. Go back to that day. Think of those crazed faces coming out of darkened fields with torches lighted, carrying Nazi banners, singing and chanting the same exact anti-Semitic bio that was chanted in the streets of Munich and Berlin and Heidelberg in the 30s. The same. Accompanied by white supremacists and Ku Klux Klan, and being challenged by decent Americans. And then we saw an American president and his confreres confer on the moral equivalence on those who spewed the hate and those who had the courage to stand against it. I don't think that's ever happened before the Civil War. About a year later, we were shocked at the sight of children being ripped out of the arms, infants that were ripped out of the arms of their parents on our border. A policy so offensive, so outside the norms of civil behavior, that we not only were stunned in America, we were ashamed around the world. I'm not paying this, not hyperbole. We were ashamed around the world. On a global stage, there's fear, confusion, and doubt. I have literally had the opportunity to meet every major world leader in the last 42 years. I know almost all of them now by their first name, because I've been around so long. We came up together. But I really, and they are friend and foe and uncertain alike, are wondering what's happened. They see an American acting more like one of Putin's poodles than the leader of the free world. Said it out loud. They say we can't be trusted anymore. Our alliances are no longer guarantees. When the president says he's not sure he's going to abide by Article 5 of NATO unless you pay more money. The whole Western Alliance, he spent 50 years building, which led to the longest period of peace and prosperity in our history, is now in jeopardy. Putin has one objective: to break NATO. So he deals with 28 individual nations, not one group of democracies. Folks, this is not who we are. The world is watching. Our kids are listening. And our silence is complicity. But here's the truth. Here's the truth. America is not like other nations. Now that sounds like a typical nativist thing to say, but it's not like other nations. We're not defined by a common religion or as a tribe. You can't define for me what an American is based on ethnicity, religion, race, background. It's not possible. America is an idea. An idea, not a joke. The American idea is being challenged again now. We're facing an historic moment. And we can't be the generation to let the core values and institutions of this nation and our standing in the world be destroyed. And here's the thing. These guys, our Republican colleagues, are complicit by their silence. They're not a good looking men. I think Jack and I agree there's some really decent colleagues we have. But they're not speaking up. Because we have a president whose sole concern is expanding and holding on to power, personal. We have a Republican Congress too afraid to step up and trying to protect the president under investigation. Folks, this is not your father's Republican Party. It's a different deal. And as Democrats, we can't stand by while they refuse to act. Because part of what makes us who we are, ask yourself, as we Catholics say, examine your conscience. Ask yourself, what made you a Democrat in the first place? My guess is it's some version of what my father talked about. An abhorrence for the abuse of power. Economic power, government power, physical power. And it's our job to reset the moral compass in this country. And it starts with the most basic stuff. You have to treat one another better. My dad said everybody's entitled to be treated with respect no matter who they are. It's about how we talk to one another. It's about leaving no one behind. It's about giving hate no safe harbor. It's about committing to something bigger than yourself. You know, there used to be a basic bargain in this country. The bargain was if you contributed to the success of the enterprise you were part of, you got to share in the benefits, share in the profits. But that bargain has been broken. Too many folks are being left behind. Millions of Americans are breaking their necks, working 2 and 3 jobs just to stay above water. That's why, to me and to Barack and me, the defining issue of our time is to get about restoring and expanding access to the middle class. My dad used to say, for real, when my dad lost his job, like your dad lost his job after 25 years, we moved from Scranton down to Wilmington because there was more work. And after that, we still had friends who would, in a recession, lose their job. My dad used to say to us, to my 3 siblings and I, he said, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in society. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. And mean it. Tell you, the moniker I've carried since I've been in Washington, among others, has been middle-class Joe. It's not been meant as a compliment. It means I'm from a background that's not particularly notable, although my parents are extremely notable. but a typical middle class and technically lower middle class background. But I tell you what, I know who built this country. The middle class built this country. The middle class isn't just a number, it's a value set. The middle class being able to own your own home, not have to rent. It's about being able to send your kid to a park and know they're going to come home from the park safely. It's about being able to send your kid to a local public high school, and you know if they do well, they get into college. If they get into college, you can figure out by hook or by crook, you'll find a way to get them there. It's about being able to take mom into the house when dad dies and your geriatric mom is left alone. It's about hoping your kids never have to take care of you. For real. That's what middle class has been about. But the gap, fewer than half the people in America qualify to be middle class right now. We're no longer the wealthiest middle class in the world. The gap between productivity and income has widened over the last 45 years. You know, from 1948 to the mid-70s, productivity went up 96%. And wages for Americans went up 91%. That was the bargain. You participated, you benefited. Well, since 1973, productivity has gone up 77%. Wages have risen 12%. What's happened? Now, a lot you can argue. You can argue a lot of it had to do with globalization. It had to do with artificial intelligence. It had to do with a whole range of things. Well, that had a lot to do with it, but no more than 30% of it. What's the rest of it? How do you explain the rest? Greed. Well, let me tell you what I mean by greed. You know, the Urban Institute just did a study. Nearly 40% of workers will at some point, working now, today, will have to sign a non-compete clause. Okay? These are legal contracts that prohibit workers from taking another job in a particular area. And it might make sense for the scientist who has the formula for some breakthrough technology to not go from one tech company to another. But it's sure, what does it have to do with fast food employees? Fast food employees, Jimmy John, they have to sign a non-compete agreement because you don't want to go, they don't want you going to McDonald's to get 5 cents more. Not a joke. Think about it. 40% of the workers. What could the reason be other than to artificially suppress, you're not a union, artificially suppress your ability to compete for your worth? We also have a complete lack of transparency. Most workers have no idea what the guy or woman standing next to them are making because they're required never to talk about their wages. Over half the Fortune 500 companies. It's not an accident. It's an intentional policy to define, to deny you being able to discuss your wages. Because how can you ask for more when the guy next to you doing the same job is making 15% more and you don't know it? Well, what rational reason has crept into our society? Or, for example, overtime. So many millions of hourly workers, people stacking shelves on an hourly basis because they control the guy who brings the food up to the shelf. They're reclassified as management. You know that costs $10 billion a year in overtime pay being denied hourly workers. Folks, we can stop this overnight. States can stop it. The federal government can stop it. So people can begin to bargain again. Begin to bargain again. Folks, this November, we got a real good chance to restore this bargain. Restoring the bargain for what you're worth. A fair tax code, an affordable education, and available education. Here's the deal. Let's take a look at health care first. Just a second. I'll stop. There's much more to say, but I'll stop. But here's the deal. Thank you, but here's the deal. We're in a situation now where these guys voted against the ungodly tax cut that was passed. where over 81% went to the top 1%. And it's a long story. I mean, it's just flat unfair. But at the time, I spoke on the steps of the Capitol because Nancy Pelosi asked me to speak to try to stop the effort. And I said, I've been here before. This is not just about giving people who don't need a tax cut a tax cut. This is about being able to starve the government. Because when they did the tax cut, as Jack will tell you, it created $1.9 trillion in debt. There's not a single economist, left or right, thinks we can sustain or carry that almost $2 trillion debt. So you know what it means? Every time you come along and say we need more money for education, we need more money for law enforcement, we need more money for how? They say, oh, we can't afford it, man. We can't increase the debt. But here's what it is. You know that old joke about Willie Sutton? They asked him why he robbed banks. He said, that's where the money is. Well, why are these guys finally able to go after the thing they've been trying to do since 1960s? Medicare, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Here's the deal, guys. The House, as Jim can tell you, the House is already, the budget chair has already noted and passed a requirement to cut Medicare by $560 billion. Now you guys go, ooh, like you're playing games. This is, god darn, this is serious. Over $500 billion cut out of Medicare. Something people have paid for. They rely on. They desperately need. Why are they going after Medicaid as well? Money. And why are they going after the Affordable Care Act to the last bit? Money. It's where the money is. It's the only way they're going to pay for it. These guys are smart enough to vote against it, to try to stop it. You want to be middle class. I did every year, I grew with this. Every year the President of the State of the Union would, he'd never tell me, but he loved doing it. He'd turn and say, and Joe's going to do the following. He thought that was really cool. You think I'm joking? I'm not. Joe's going to do the moonshot. Joe's going to handle the $857 billion stimulus bill. Joe's going to do, and by the way, the only good thing about it, when he gave me authority, he gave me presidential authority to do it. But here's the deal, guys. He asked me 5 years ago to do a study on jobs of the future. 6 out of 10 jobs by 2020 need something beyond a high school degree, and that's only going to increase. But try sending your kid to college these days. Guy could be out there making $52,000 on the assembly line, his wife making $48,000 or reverse. They're making a lot of money together. They got 3 kids. Guess what? How do they pay for college? How do they pay for all the stuff how do they pay for their health care? Well, by the way, they can't breathe. Well, no, but they can't breathe either. The people are breathing. And if you want to make a speech, get your rear end up. You know what it is. The question is, what are we going to do about it? What specifically? Well, specifically what we can do is what the governor already did. We did a study. If we could put every single qualified, academically qualified person in the United States in community college for $6 billion a year. And there goes a big spend of Biden, man. If we did that, it would increase productivity by 0.2% per year. That's over $1 trillion over a 10-year period. Really grow. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. They say we can't afford it. When Reagan was president, there were $800 billion in tax expenditures, loopholes in the tax code for corporations and wealthy individuals. Today, it's $1.6 trillion. If you just eliminated one of them, punishing nobody, because wealthy people are as patriotic as poor people. If I give you a tax break and you don't even think you need it, not a lot of you are going to say, no, I'm not going to take it, I'm going to send it back. So here's the deal. If you eliminated one, this thing called stepped up basis, I hope some of you know what it was. I didn't know what it was. As my colleagues can tell you, they got a big kick out of it. When I filed, I was always listening to the poorest man in Congress. Not a joke, unfortunately. And when I did my financial disclosure as vice president, the front page, you can Google it, the Washington Post said, quote, "It's probable no man has ever assumed the office of vice president with fewer assets than Joe Biden." I assume they weren't talking an election. They pointed out that my total net worth was between $55,000 and $150,000 after 44 years in public office. Now, there's a reason for that. I agreed because I thought it was a conflict. I never own a stock or a bond. It's okay to do it. I just didn't want to be in that position. I'd never accept an honorary, and I'd never be involved in a business venture, even those that are totally legitimate. And that's why I did it for my own independence. But I didn't know what stepped-up basis meant. Stepped-up basis means you go out and you buy $1 million worth of stock, or less or more, and it increases in value to $2 million. Well, you're going to sell it. You're going to take a gain, a capital gain of $1 million. You pay less than your taxes would ordinarily be. But if God forbid, in the way to pay that tax, you get hit by a truck, and everything gets left to your daughter or your son, they don't pay a single penny. Now, folks, it's not inheritance tax, but the tax owed 10 seconds before you were killed. You're not punishing anybody. Well, that whole loss of revenue amounts to $17 billion a year out of $1.6 trillion. A pittance. If you eliminated that one tax, you could put every single solitary qualified student in a community college for free, cutting in half the cost of college completely, and have $11 billion reduced in deficit. Folks, nothing is beyond our capacity. It's time, with the leadership you have here in this state and around the country, that we lift our heads up. Remember who the hell we are. This is America. There's never been anything we've been unable to do. Never. We can do anything, and we have the wherewithal and the capacity to do it. But damn it, everybody talks about, oh, China's our competition. Look, folks, from the time I've been elected, I've been referred to as the White House, as the optimist, the young optimist. And if anything you ever read about me, when I was vice president, I was always referred as the White House optimist. Like I was as my grandpa Finnegan would say, like I fell off the turnip truck yesterday. I'm there longer than all of them, but I know the history of the journey of America. Ordinary people do extraordinary things, given half a chance. And folks, look who we are. China's not competition for us. China doesn't have enough energy. They don't have enough water. They're talking about $1 trillion project to turn around the flow of their rivers. 40% of their arable land is polluted with cadmium. Have you ever seen a picture of anything going on in Beijing or other large cities? People aren't walking around with a mask on. They still have a historic 1,000-year difference between the folks and their attitude on the shore and inland. They have a kleptocracy made up of princelings who own and steal everything in sight. Folks, they're not, as we say in Claremont, Delaware, they're not a patch in our jeans. I want them to do well, because it's in our interest for them to be stable. Anybody raise your hand if you think the EU is going to eat our lunch like I was told for so many years? Where's the competition? Our workers are 3 times as productive as workers in Asia. 3 times. Fact. We have more great research universities in America than every other country in the world combined. No exaggeration. Every country. And there's not one single solitary life-changing occurrence that has occurred other than come out of a research university. And we have the most agile venture capitalists in the world. So damn it. Let's remember who the hell we are. Stand up. Take this country back. Because the 21st century should belong and be owned by the United States of America for the welfare of the rest of the world. So guys, let's go take it back and start here. Take it back now. Democrats and Republicans. I've had enough. enough. You got enough.